All right. So moving on, one of the latest proposals by the NFL is actually reducing the NFL preseason games down to just one game now. Instead of initially they were going to have two, which was going to be week 2 and week 3. And now that one game that they want to play is going to be supposedly is going to be held August 27th, which would initially have been the week 3 of the preseason. So I know in a previous episode that you and me, Jimmy, have discussed maybe doing week 1 and week 3 again to get a little bit more of a sample size and give them a little bit more of time. So I guess what are your initial thoughts about them just holding one preseason game in total?
Yeah, I the more preseason games they can hold, the more likely the season is going to go off without a hitch. But it looks like that ship has sailed.
Hmm.
They're going to cut down to at most two, and right now it looks like at most one. So the proposal is one game for the Lions that would be at Miami in the third week. Now, there's been some concern from some people that they're traveling to Florida, which is maybe a hotbed for
Hmm.
positive test cases. So it increases the Lions' exposure. Now, let's talk about the actual risk here. The game itself likely does not present any increased risk beyond just a typical practice session. The main increased risk, in my opinion, would be from the travel,
Yep.
the airport, the long airplane ride to Miami, which is one of the farthest places they could go, but beyond the West Coast,
Hmm.
as well as the hotel stay. So the home team is not going to have to stay in a hotel. The home team is not going to have to go on the airport or airplane. So there will be increased exposure to the Lions players and staff because they have to go on a road game for their one preseason game.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the pros and cons of this increased exposure. The cons are, yes, increased exposure to COVID, increased possible health risk. But there are some pros to that may be a little bit controversial, but we should probably get into. Getting exposed might be a good thing for the Lions if two assumptions hold true. Number one is that most players are going to or already have contracted COVID
Hmm.
already. These are young, healthy people who are out and about a lot. They're going to be playing a sport involving interactions with hundreds of people on a daily basis. So there is a pretty decent chance that at some point over the next few months, they are going to contract COVID. If that's true, you'd rather them contract COVID during the preseason
Hmm.
because of the second assumption, which is hopefully some degree of immunity develops once you contract COVID, which
Yep.
will decrease the likelihood of a positive test in the future and potentially create a herd immunity, which would help prevent many outbreaks within the Lions players and staff.
Hmm.
The fewer positive tests that a team has during the season, the greater the chance they have of winning games
Yep.
and having a successful season. Lions players and Lions fans, there is increased risk of contracting COVID going down to Miami, but maybe that's actually a good thing as far as how the season plays out.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's like you said, it's better to try and get all of that out. And that's the whole reason that we are discussing that there should have been week 1 and week 3 to kind of get that out of the way, maybe possibly contract it if they are going to, and to just get all of that type of stuff out of the way. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do with just 1 week, especially like you said, possibly going down to a hot spot. Because I know you were talking about this on Twitter. How is I believe it's still quarantine period for players is 2 weeks if they are tested positive.
Well, the initial report through Pro Football Talk was 3 weeks, which I tweeted that that's not even consistent with the CDC guidelines, which
Yeah.
suggests 10 days maximum. Well,
Hmm.
that report apparently was erroneous or got updated. So right now it's unsure how long a player needs to be out before
All
being able
right.
to return. The CDC recommendations are if you're not having any symptoms for 10 days and you have two negative tests in a row within 24 hours, you can go back. So we'll just have to wait to see what the NFL doctors decide.
Yep. I feel like they're gonna put it at 2 weeks because you said, like I said, 3 weeks is probably too long, and of course they're gonna probably want to try and get their players back as quick as possible, but they're also trying to stay on the safety side. So I'm assuming it'd probably be around 2 weeks is what they're gonna claim to be the quarantine period.
Yeah, if it's 2 weeks, that would have a major impact on the season. Imagine if your starter, like Stafford, is
Yep.
out for 2 weeks. Or let's say that 2 weeks happens right before the playoffs.
Hmm.
Imagine, or right before the Super Bowl. How brutal would that be? The Lions make the Super Bowl, Stafford tests positive a week and a half before the Super Bowl. Just that could be just the worst luck imaginable.
Then we have Chase Daniels as our starting Super Bowl quarterback.
Or he's positive too, and now we got, Jeff Driscoll or whoever's been sitting on their couch for the past 6 months
Yeah,
going into
exactly.
play.
It's going to be real interesting to see how this whole corona affects the season. And again, like you said, maybe even at the end of the season when you're fighting for a playoff spot and you have to win those last two games, division games, whatever, and then Stafford or anyone, Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay gets out COVID. They're out for 2 weeks now.
Yeah, so my hope is that it's not gonna be 2 weeks. My hope is that it'll be 1 week minimum, and they'd be able to come back for that 2nd week if the tests come back negative 2 days in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just have to wait and see.